I often find myself thinking about how different my life could have been if my parents hadn't divorced when I was 7. Back then, I was just Jessica Thompson, a regular kid living with my mom and dad in a cozy house they bought together. I remember those early years being filled with simple joys: family dinners, weekend trips to the park, and bedtime stories read by both parents. Everything changed when they separated up. Dad moved out but left us the house and made sure we were taken care of financially. He paid enough in alimony that Mom didn't need to work, which she seemed very happy with. A year later, Mom met Steve. He seemed nice enough at first, always bringing candy when he visited and trying to make me laugh. They got married pretty quickly, and soon after, my half-sister Cindy was born. That's when things started to shift. Steve began giving me these looks, like I was somehow in the way. He'd make little comments when Mom wasn't around, stuff like, "Don't you miss your dad?" Or "Wouldn't you rather live with him?" I was 12 when I overheard the exchange that would change everything. "Look," Steve was saying, his voice low yet forceful. "I got that promotion at work. My salary's virtually doubled. You won't need to work, or Jessica's child support." "But that money helps," Mom answered. "It pays for a lot." "Come on, Sarah. We both know Jessica would be better off with her father. Furthermore, wouldn't it be pleasant to concentrate solely on our family?" On Cindy? I will never forget the fact that she agreed without hesitation. "You're correct. I'll give Mark a call tomorrow to discuss taking Jessica." In order to avoid making a sound, I kept my palm over my mouth while I stood there in the dark. As I pondered what I had just heard, I forgot about the glass of water I had requested. My own mother no longer needed my father's money, therefore she was trading me away. In retrospect, I question whether they were aware that I overheard the exchange. When Mom announced that I would be moving in with Dad, she pretended that she was doing me a favor. As if she wasn't simply getting rid of me because I had become financially inconvenient, she continued, "You'll have more opportunities there." Dad embraced me without asking any questions. My favorite color was painted, a room was made up in his apartment for me, and a bookcase was stocked with all the series I enjoyed reading. He sat on the edge of my bed that first night at his house and said, "I'm sorry things turned out this way, youngster. You will always have a home with me, though, and I want you to know that. Always." In the years that followed, their words served as my compass. Dad was there for everything, including school plays, parent-teacher conferences, and even the moment when my first crush broke my heart, while Mom was busy with her new family and hardly checked in outside of the required holiday calls. He never made me feel like a burden, supported my interests, and made sure I was accepted into a reputable private school. He sat with me night after night while I researched colleges and reviewed writings for college applications. I can still clearly recall the day I received my Princeton acceptance letter. As he read it, Dad's eyes filled with tears. With a bear hug, he remarked, "You did it, kiddo. I knew you would always." Dad never complained about the high cost of college. Every time I raised the expense, he would respond, "Your education is my priority." The 4 years passed quickly, and before I knew it, I was earning an honors degree and working for one of the city's leading consulting firms. I rented a lovely apartment in the heart of the city, close to Dad's house. We had dinner together every Sunday, just like we had since I was 12. He'd ask about my work, and I'd tell him about my latest projects. Sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence, watching old movies like we used to when I was in high school. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. The diagnosis came out of nowhere: stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, the doctor said, though they were optimistic. Dad only made it 4. I was 28 when I lost him. The last few weeks were brutal. I took leave from work to be with him in the hospital. One night, near the end, he squeezed my hand and said, "You were the best thing in my life, Jessica. Never forget that." After he passed, I discovered he'd left me everything. His beautiful apartment in the city center and $700,000 in his accounts. I couldn't even think about the money. I just missed my dad. A month after the funeral, my phone rang. I almost dropped it when I saw Mom on the caller ID. "Jessica," her voice was hesitant. "I heard about your father. I'm so sorry." I hadn't heard from her in years. "Thanks," I managed to say. "I know this might not be the best time, but Steve passed away too recently. Heart attack." She paused. "I've been thinking about you a lot." Maybe it was grief making me vulnerable, or maybe I just wanted to believe people could change, but I found myself agreeing to meet her for coffee. One coffee turned into regular visits. I met Cindy properly for the first time since she was a baby. She was 21 now, bouncing between job interviews and seemingly directionless. Mom was working as a cashier at the local supermarket, a far cry from her days of not needing to work. I started visiting them several times a month. I told them about my travels, weekend trips to different states, my vacations in Europe. I always brought them gifts. Designer clothes for Cindy, nice perfumes for Mom, little luxuries they couldn't afford themselves. It felt good, in a way, being able to share my success with them. It became a routine. I couldn't show up at Mom's place empty-handed. Even if I was just dropping by for a quick coffee, I'd feel guilty if I didn't bring something. The local mall became my regular stop before any visit. Cindy especially loved the clothes I brought back from Europe. Her eyes would light up every time I pulled out something from my suitcase. "Oh my God, Jess, is this really from that boutique in Paris?" She'd squeal, holding up whatever designer piece I'd brought her. At first, I enjoyed their reactions. Maybe I was trying to buy the affection I never got as a kid. I'd carefully pick out things I thought they'd like: a cashmere sweater for Mom, a leather handbag for Cindy. Then one day, I decided to ask what they actually wanted. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Mom started, looking down at her coffee cup. "Maybe just some new towels from Target." Cindy was equally hesitant at first. Maybe some drugstore makeup." But something shifted after that. The requests started getting bigger, more frequent. Mom went from asking for towels to texting me entire shopping lists. "Hey, honey," one text read, "when you're in Milan next month, could you pick up that Gucci bag we saw online? And Cindy really needs new winter clothes. Prada would be nice. Oh, and we're running low on groceries." I stared at my phone, my stomach turning. The list kept getting longer and more demanding. It wasn't just luxury items anymore. They expected me to cover their basic expenses too. One evening, after receiving yet another lengthy list, I decided enough was enough. I drove to their house, determined to have a serious conversation. "Mom, Cindy, we need to talk about these requests," I said, sitting at their kitchen table. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "The list, the constant asking for things. It's getting out of hand." "Oh, come on," Cindy rolled her eyes. "It's not like you can't afford it. You're loaded." "That's not the point," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, I have money, but..." "But what?" Cindy interrupted. "You're just going to hoard it all while your family struggles. You've got that fancy apartment, you're always traveling, and you can't help out your poor family. You're rich. Your dad left her all that money, and you're being selfish." I felt my face getting hot. Selfish? That money came from the parent who actually wanted me. The one who didn't trade me away when I became inconvenient. The room went dead silent. It's my money, I said, finally standing up. And I'll decide how to spend it. Real nice, Jess, Cindy spat. Real nice way to treat your family. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the next month, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no lists of demands. Part of me was hurt, but another part felt relieved. After a month of silence, my phone rang. It was Mom. Jessica, honey, could you come over? I need to talk to you about something important. There was something in her voice that made me worry. Despite our recent argument, I found myself driving to her house that afternoon. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived, looking more subdued than usual. Cindy hovered nearby, her face uncharacteristically serious. "What's going on?" I asked, taking a seat. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I've been to see a doctor. Jessica, it's my knee. They say I need surgery right away. A total knee replacement." My stomach dropped. "How serious is it?" "Very," she said, her voice trembling. "The doctor says if I don't get it done soon, I could end up disabled. I wouldn't be able to work anymore." I thought about Dad, how quickly things had gone downhill after his diagnosis. How helpless I'd felt watching him suffer. "The thing is," Mom continued, "the best specialist for this kind of surgery is in Arizona. They've got a spot open," but she paused, glancing at Cindy. "The whole thing, surgery, hospital stay, rehabilitation, it's going to cost $770,000. $770,000. I repeated, shocked. "I know it's a lot," Mom said quickly. "But Cindy will come with me to help during recovery. The whole treatment and rehabilitation will take about a month." I sat there, memories of Dad's last months flooding back, the hospital corridors, the beeping machines, the helpless feeling of watching someone you love suffer. I couldn't let that happen again. Not if I could prevent it. "I'll help," I heard myself say. "But I can't give you the whole amount at once. I can give you half now, $35,000, and the other half when I get the hospital bill." Mom's face darkened. "But I need all of it up front." "The hospital, Mom," I interrupted. "That's all I can do right now. I need to be smart about this." She started to protest, but Cindy put a hand on her shoulder. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "Actually," Mom said, her tone shifting, "let me call the hospital. Maybe I can arrange to pay in 2 installments." She left the room with her phone, and I heard her voice drifting from the hallway. A few minutes later, she returned, looking relieved. "They said it would be fine," she announced. "We can pay half now and half after the surgery." The next few days were a blur of preparations. I transferred the first $35,000 to Mom's account. A week later, I helped them pack their bags and drove them to the airport. A few days after Mom and Cindy left, I was sitting in my home office, reviewing some work documents, when my phone buzzed. The name that popped up made me smile. Rachel Martinez, my best friend from elementary school. We'd known each other since we were 6, but after I moved in with Dad, we mostly kept in touch through social media. Recently, we'd started meeting up again for coffee and catching up on lost time. "Hey, Rach, what's up?" "Jess," there was something odd in her voice. "I need to ask you something weird. Did you know your mom and sister are in Europe?" I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What?" "No, they're in Arizona. Mom's having surgery." "Yeah, that's what I thought too." Rachel paused. "But my sister just showed me these photos that Cindy sent her. Well, they're definitely not in Arizona." My phone pinged with incoming messages. With each new photo that loaded, I felt like I was being punched in the gut. There was Mom, looking perfectly healthy, posing in front of the Trevi fountain. Cindy taking selfies outside designer boutiques in Rome. Mom's sister Angela and her daughter Emma lounging by a private pool at what looked like an expensive villa. Each photo was time-stamped, yesterday's date clearly visible. "There's more," Rachel said hesitantly. "My sister said Cindy's been bragging about the whole thing. Apparently, your mom bought one-way tickets for everyone. Herself, Cindy, your Aunt Angela, and your cousin Emma. They've rented some luxury villa for a month, and they're shopping at all these high-end stores and eating at fancy restaurants." I sat there, staring at a photo of my mother, my supposedly surgery-bound mother, sipping wine at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Italian countryside. The $35,000 I'd given her for medical expenses was being spent on a European vacation. I spent the night tossing and turning, looking at those photos over and over. How could they do this? How could they lie so brazenly, taking advantage of my concern about Mom's health? They played me, using my memories of Dad's illness to manipulate me into giving them money. The next morning, I called Mom. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely hold the phone. "How did this surgery go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, it went great. The doctor said everything went perfectly. I'm already starting rehabilitation." I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles turning white. The casual way she lied made me feel sick. "That's wonderful," I said, my voice dripping with barely contained rage. "I'd love to talk to your doctor about the procedure. Could you put him on?" There was a slight pause. "Oh, he's very busy right now, sweetie. Besides, there's no need to bother him. Look, I need to go. They're calling me for physical therapy." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, a wave of memories washing over me. Mom giving me away at 12 because she didn't need Dad's money anymore. Mom only reaching out after Dad died and left me his estate. Mom sending me shopping lists expecting me to fund her lifestyle. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. I decided to play along with their charade, calling Mom every day to check on her recovery. Each time, she had a new excuse ready. "The doctor's in surgery right now, honey. He's at a conference today. He's seeing other patients. He's off duty until tomorrow." It was like watching a bad play where the actor keeps forgetting their lines and making up new ones on the spot. I started keeping a list of her excuses, partly out of anger, partly because I couldn't believe how ridiculous they were getting. "Mom," I said during one call, trying to sound concerned, "maybe we could do a video chat. I just want to see how you're doing, make sure you're comfortable in the hospital." There was a rustling sound on the other end, probably her covering the phone while she consulted with Cindy about what to say next. "Oh, sweetie, I look terrible right now, all swollen and bruised. Plus, the hospital Wi-Fi is awful. It keeps cutting out." I could hear Italian pop music playing faintly in the background. "Really?" I pressed. "That's strange for a top medical facility." "Well, you know how these things are," she said quickly. "Listen, I need to go. Time for my physical therapy." The next time I called, I decided to try a different approach. "Mom, just send me the hospital bill directly. I'll wire the remaining $35,000 to their account." "No," she said, too quickly, too forcefully, then softening her tone. "I mean, that's not necessary. Just send it to my account, and I'll handle everything with the hospital. They know me here now." After that conversation, I stopped calling. Let them sweat a little, I thought. Sure enough, a week later, Mom's number appeared on my phone. I watched it ring, imagining her growing panic as she realized the money might not be coming after all. Then came the text. "Jessica, the hospital is demanding payment immediately. They're threatening to send the bill to collections. Please, we need the money right away." I took my time responding, waiting several hours before typing. No problem. Just forward me the bill from the hospital, and I'll take care of it immediately. Silence followed. 3 days of it. I knew they were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. Then an email arrived in my inbox with a subject line, "Urgent hospital bill attached." I opened the attachment and almost laughed out loud. They hadn't even tried to make it look legitimate. The letterhead was blurry, clearly copied from some other document. The date was from 6 months ago. The hospital's address showed California instead of Arizona. And most tellingly, the payment details section listed Mom's personal bank account. I stared at this pathetic attempt at forgery, feeling a mix of amusement and deep sadness. I photographed a stack of $100 bills I'd withdrawn earlier that week, arranging them fan-like on my desk. "Got your bill," I wrote back, attaching the photos. "Sending you money." My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment before I pressed it. Game on, Mom, I thought. Let's see what story you come up with next. My phone rang less than an hour after I sent the photos. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and I took a deep breath before answering. "Jessica." Her voice was shrill, panicked. "What's going on? Where's the rest of the money we've been waiting for?" "Drop the act, Mom," I cut her off, my voice cold. "I know exactly where you are, and it's not in any hospital." "What are you talking about?" "You're in Italy at a villa, shopping at designer stores, and eating at expensive restaurants with Cindy, Aunt Angela, and Emma." The line went silent for a moment. I could almost hear her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin this. "How did you?" She started. "Cindy sent photos to Rachel's sister, who showed them to Rachel, who then sent them to me," I said. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I seen everything. The villa, the shopping trips, all of it. You used my father's death, used my grief and guilt about not being able to save him, to scam me out of money for a vacation." Another pause, then her voice changed. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by defensive anger. "Fine, yes, we're in Italy. I knew you'd never give us money for a vacation, but why shouldn't we get to travel too? You're always going somewhere, Paris, London, New York. Meanwhile, Cindy and I can barely afford groceries. That's not fair." "Not fair," my voice was shaking now. "Not fair is being 12 years old and hearing your mother trade you away because she didn't need your father's money anymore. Not fair is having that same mother show up 16 years later, not because she misses you, but because your father died and left you money." "We can talk about all that later," she said quickly. "Right now, we have a serious problem. We don't have money for tickets home, and we still need to pay the villa rental. Everyone needs to get back to work. We can't lose our jobs. Please, Jessica, we need that other $35,000. In that moment, I finally saw everything clearly. Nothing had changed. She was still the same woman who'd given me away when I became financially inconvenient. Only now she wanted me back, or rather, she wanted my money back. "That's your problem, not mine," I said flatly. "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I went through every social media platform, every messaging app, every possible way they could reach me, and blocked them all. Mom, Cindy, Aunt Angela, everyone involved in this scheme. Sitting there in the silence of my apartment, the apartment Dad left me, I felt something shift inside me. The last lingering hope that my mother might actually care about me, might actually want a relationship with her daughter rather than her daughter's money, finally died. 2 weeks after I blocked everyone, my grandmother called. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma had always been different from Mom, more honest, more genuine. "Jessica, honey," she said, her voice worried. Your mother called me. She says she needs $115,000 urgently. I don't have that kind of money, but I thought maybe you. Grandma, I said gently, let me tell you what really happened. I told her everything. The fake surgery, the Italian vacation, the scam to get my money. With each detail, I heard her sighing, getting heavier. Oh, Jessica, she said finally. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Sarah would do something like this. Don't worry about them, Grandma, I assured her. They got themselves into this mess. They can get themselves out. As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long to find out how they managed. Rachel called me a few days later. Have you seen what Cindy's doing on social media? She asked. I hadn't, since I'd blocked them everywhere. Rachel proceeded to fill me in. She's running this fundraiser, claiming her wealthy sister abandoned them in Italy without money to get home. She's painting you as this heartless, rich person who left her poor family stranded in a foreign country. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time it was mixed with something else, amusement. How's that working out for them? I asked. Well, Rachel said, they spent almost 2 weeks trying to raise the money. They had to sell all those designer clothes and bags they bought. Apparently, the villa owner was threatening to call the police because they couldn't pay the rent. And get this, they almost lost their jobs because they stayed way longer than their approved vacation time. I shook my head, thinking about how their grand European adventure had backfired spectacularly. A month later, Grandma called again with an update. They're finally back, she said, but Jessica, it's a mess. Your Aunt Angela isn't speaking to your mother anymore. Apparently, Sarah demanded she help pay for the trip after everything fell apart. She and I had a terrible fight because I couldn't give her money for tickets home. She actually accused me of choosing you over her. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, Grandma said. Don't be, sweetheart, I replied. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions. Following our phone conversation, I went to my apartment, Dad's apartment, and gazed out over the city from the window. The sky was tinted in tones of pink and orange as the sun descended. A pile of trip pamphlets waited on my desk. I was organizing my next vacation, which would take me to Greece. It's possible that the previous version of myself felt bad about going while Mom and Cindy were struggling. The previous version of myself could have welcomed them along and made another attempt to establish the kind of relationship I had always desired with them. But someone stronger, someone who at last realized that some relationships aren't worth preserving, took the place of that me. I kept thinking about Dad's final comments to me while I was in the hospital. Jessica, you were the greatest thing in my life. Remember that always. I had not forgotten, and I realized at last that I had been fortunate to have had a single mom who genuinely loved me, prioritized me, and taught me the value of self-worth. Mom and Cindy were free to continue their plots and deceit. I inherited my father's legacy, his love, and, above all, my dignity. I live a tranquil life these days. I work hard at my career, travel whenever I want, and hang out with friends that appreciate me for who I am rather than what I can provide them. Grandma occasionally gives me tidbits of information concerning Mom and Cindy. They continue to struggle, act like victims, and search for their next victim. However, their drama no longer affects me.